the academy on the great plateau city of Dawn Harbor was known for, pushing students toward an ideal of excellence seldom matched on Earth. In the age of interstellar migration, the academy served as a cultural bridge between distant colonies and the ancestral homeworld. Every year, the Grand Exhibition of Arts welcomed the finest performers from allied settlements across the spiral arm. It was a revered event for diplomats, scholars, and pioneers who sought to preserve the identity of Earth across foreign territory. In this environment, a young pianist named Liam had arrived from a remote colony beyond the Blue Rift. He had traveled aboard a merchant vessel for 22 days, while listening to fragments of ancient Earth, recordings on his personal slate reader. Liam came from a settlement where instruments were rare and where recorded music was valued as precious heritage. He dreamed of presenting his own compositions at the Grand Exhibition. Believing the right melody could connect separated worlds, the Academy was staffed by numerous specialists, including an American teacher named Grant Royston. He had once been praised as a promising scholar of historical music, but had abandoned composing after being overshadowed by others. Now he taught as an evaluator and mentor, though most students found him distant. He claimed that Earth standards were slipping, and that modern colonists simplified traditions until excellence was lost. His students endured long lectures about true refinement and correct phrasing. Grant learned of Liam several days before the exhibition. He scanned an education file that listed the young pianist as self-taught. The biography mentioned no prestigious lineage. Grant muttered that the Academy board made mistakes. He disliked when unknown students rose quickly, because he saw it as a challenge to his authority. Grant convinced himself that Liam's presence threatened the standards he believed he upheld. In truth, he had become insecure over the years and felt forgotten by the Academy. Leadership. Liam arrived at the hall early on the morning of the rehearsal. The sky above Dawn Harbor shimmered with a pale sheen cast by the orbital shield that protected the city. Drivers guided silent gliders along overhead bridges, and crowds moved toward the auditorium to watch preliminary sessions. Liam carried a portable keyboard wrapped inside a worn travel case. He had borrowed an official performance instrument, yet he preferred to warm up with the instrument that had accompanied him on countless journeys. Inside the hall, Liam sat alone, testing chords on the instrument. He explored themes he had composed while drifting through the Blue Rift trade lanes. The melodies expressed longing yet optimism, and transitions mirrored the soft pulse of the ship reactor. He imagined his colony listening through far-off receivers. He pictured miners, technicians, and children who seldom saw stars through clear atmosphere. He wished to give them something that could last beyond the moment. Grant stepped behind him without greeting. He watched Liam's hands glide over the keys. Then he asked what composition the student intended to present. Liam mentioned a theme called Path of Returning Light. Grant responded that the title sounded pretentious. Liam remained calm and answered that the piece honored travelers who left Earth and longed to return someday. Grant scowled and said the audience would not care for emotional expressions if the structure lacked discipline. Liam smiled with courtesy. He said he welcomed suggestions. The comment angered Grant even more, because he interpreted it as arrogance. He said Liam's posture was wrong. He said the piece relied on excessive sentiment. He said the colony culture produced shallow imitation of true Earth artistry. The remark struck nearby students as harsh. A few whispered that Grant often criticized without offering relevant guidance. Grant told Liam that he would perform a modified test version before the main event. He ordered him to sit at the official performance bench. Liam agreed. He rolled the travel case aside and sat with quiet dignity. Grant walked to the center, raised his chin, and announced evaluation protocol. Several assistants recorded data. A group of senior guests watched from a high balcony. Liam began playing. The first passage carried gentle resonance. The tone emerged like distant sunbeams across metallic waters. Liam shaped the melody with tenderness, easing through transitions that evoked soft breezes under artificial domes. Grant shook his head and waved his hand to interrupt. He said the pacing was wrong. He said the theme lacked historical compatibility with Earth traditional cycle forms. He asked Liam whether he believed atmospheric nostalgia replaced structural rigor. Liam responded with respectful calm. He said his home settlement learned music from incomplete archives. He said they reconstructed themes as best they could. He said he had studied every file he could find, then composed melodies that honored the fragments. Grant answered that the Academy demanded exact knowledge rather than improvised fidelity. He said the student's sound belonged in a frontier tavern rather than on an Academy stage. The remark echoed through the hall. Liam lowered his eyes and seemed ready to retreat. But then he inhaled deeply. He stood. He walked to his travel case. He opened it and removed his portable keyboard. He plugged it into the hall amplifier without waiting for approval. Grant commanded him to stop. Liam asked politely for a single chance. He said he would not argue. He would let the performance speak. The audience murmured. Assistants hesitated. Senior guests exchanged curious glances. Grant said the boy misunderstood what mattered. Liam said no. He said he understood perfectly that human heritage was not maintained through fear, but through devotion. He sat at his keyboard. He began to play again. This time the theme soared with surging progression. He layered harmonic bridges that merged faint colonial motifs with ancient earth transitions, recovered from fragmentary archives. He improvised new variations while preserving the core structure. His fingers moved with steady brilliance. The sound filled the hall with clarity. The amplifier transmitted warm resonance that traveled through the rafters. Students gathered from adjacent corridors. Visitors paused with astonishment. Senior guests stood at the balcony rail. The theme changed shape mid-segment. It turned brighter. It embraced subtle tension, then resolved into radiant triumph. In that moment, the hall felt purified, as if long-separated communities recognized one another. Grant stood motionless. He struggled to deny the quality before him. The piece concluded with a rising cadence. Liam lifted his hands. The last note hovered like a silver horizon line. For a moment, silence filled the auditorium. Then applause erupted. It climbed from the lower rows and surged upward. Students cheered. Assistants clapped vigorously. Visitors shouted praise. Senior guests nodded with emphatic approval. The entire hall seemed charged with renewed purpose. The sound shook Grant from his paralysis. He stared at Liam with conflicted expression. His authority had collapsed. Everything he used to conceal his insecurity had been overturned by genuine talent. He forced a tense grin, but his voice failed to form words. The Academy director arrived at the balcony. She announced that Liam would not merely perform during the exhibition, but would also receive special recognition for revitalizing archival traditions. She invited Liam to present extended variations during the evening gala. The hall cheered again. Grant stumbled toward the exit, but paused. Liam approached him. The young pianist thanked him for forcing a rehearsal that revealed true clarity. He said he would always honor the legacy of Earth. Grant bowed his head. He whispered that he had forgotten why music mattered. He said he had hidden behind rules because he feared irrelevance. Liam said respect was restored through honest creation. Grant nodded and walked away with renewed humility. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the high windows as the rehearsal dispersed. Students gathered around Liam, asking questions about the colony beyond the Blue Rift. Liam told them stories about small settlements carved into stony valleys. He described makeshift concert gatherings held beside mining rails where families shared meals while listening to simple keyboards. He spoke of nights when power shortages forced performers to play without amplification. One student asked how such harsh conditions produced beauty. Liam answered that music existed precisely because conditions were harsh. He said people needed something to warm their spirit. Another asked whether he would return home after the exhibition. He said he hoped to visit Earth first. He dreamed of walking through open forests where leaves grew naturally rather than under-regulated photonic lamps. During the evening, the hall filled with influential leaders from numerous settlements. The gala commenced with curated displays of holographic art. Musicians from multiple cultures performed. When Liam's turn arrived, the lighting dimmed. The official instrument sat at center stage. But Liam brought his portable keyboard instead. He placed it gently upon a carved pedestal set by stage technicians. The director introduced him. She explained that his colony had preserved incomplete musical traces through perseverance. She said his performance embodied unity of distant societies. Liam closed his eyes. He began with the same theme from rehearsal, but expanded upon it. He inserted a secondary sequence that symbolized shared migration across stellar regions. He shifted into a tertiary segment that invoked ancient seafaring ballads converted into interstellar imagery. The audience sensed emotional landscape that transcended language. Many visitors closed their eyes too. They drifted within the music. The final section arrived. Instead of ending with a single cadence, he developed a progression that represented return after long exile. Listeners imagined great vessels gliding above dawn-tinted oceans. They imagined families stepping onto familiar soil. They imagined children who once learned music from incomplete recordings, now singing among forests and mountains. When Liam concluded, the gala hall exploded with applause again. It was greater than before. People rose from their seats. Delegates from frontier sectors shouted greetings. Old scholars declared that heritage had found new life. Grant sat near the exit. He clapped with sincerity. He felt lighter than he had in many years. He recognized that he had allowed bitterness to eclipse his original devotion. He realized that teaching required humility because students sometimes arrived with gifts beyond standard. RUBRICS. After the gala, the director offered Liam a chance to study advanced composition at the main conservatory on Earth. Liam accepted in gratitude. He said he would return to the colony later and bring resources that could elevate young performers there. The next day, the Academy published official recordings of the performance. Within hours, frontier stations replayed the theme across networks. Families in mining districts gathered to listen. Children hummed the rising cadence while traveling to school. Engineers embedded fragments of the piece into ship navigation chimes. The colony beyond the Blue Rift celebrated by lighting lanterns across domed terraces. Grant requested reassignment at the Cultural Archive Division. There he cataloged historical scores and taught visiting apprentices how to interpret early fragments. He worked quietly, but diligently. He remembered his encounter with Liam and vowed never to diminish a young artist again. Months later, Liam traveled to Earth. He stepped onto soil he had imagined since childhood. He felt wind that did not come from controlled vents. He visited ancient conservatory chambers where composers once labored over handwritten notation. He studied with dedicated mentors. He refined his compositions without losing the spirit that came from humble origins. The Academy wrote that Liam would eventually return to his colony and build a conservatory. His classmates predicted that he would become a symbol of unity between distant human settlements. But Liam always said that he never played for recognition. He played because people needed beauty. Thus the story of the young pianist traveled across the star map. It reminded settlers that talent could rise from any frontier. It reminded teachers to guide rather than belittle. And it reminded humanity that even when archives fade and traditions fracture, melodic devotion can rebuild common heritage. Wherever the recording of Path of Returning Light was played, audiences felt transported beyond fear. They sensed hope unfolding through chords that began in scarcity and grew into abundance. And each time the final cadence resolved, listeners applauded as though dawn itself opened over distant horizons.